Archie's Travels, Chapter 13. They came to a big old farmhouse with big iron gates. Jack grabbed Archie's collar and said, "Be quiet, or I'll quieten you for good." Archie had no intention of giving him that pleasure. They watched the house lights go off one by one, and then they walked round the house, looking for a gap in the fences, as the gate was too high to climb and was probably alarmed. Eventually, they found a hole in the fence and they scrambled through unseen. Archie felt guilty, but there was nothing he could do about it. They slowly crept around the house looking for a way in, and eventually they found an open window. Jack crept in with his bag and he ordered Archie to wait there for a second. He thought of barking loudly to alert the owners, but he knew that would only cause trouble for him and everyone back at the farm. Jack made his way through the house carefully not to knock anything over, and he was wary of alarms and being disturbed. He crept as quietly as a cat over the creaking floorboards, swiftly putting items into his sack: a gold carriage clock, a dazzling Rolex watch, fancy cutlery, a small oil painting, and even a trumpet. Everything was of interest to him. If it could be sold or melted down, he would have it. Jack carefully opened a mahogany drawer and he rummaged around, sending photos and papers flying. Then he got lucky and he found a leather wallet full of colourful banknotes. "Euros," he said, kissing the big bundle. He smiled a big cruel smile, revealing his stolen gold fillings, which shone in the dark room. Suddenly he could hear someone snoring upstairs, and he knew that he was home and dry. The last thing that he found was a plain gold ring, and he knew that it would be perfect for Beryl. Jack had no conscience. He felt entitled to everything. He placed the bulging sack onto the sink, and he opened the window, and he carefully opened the window even carefully, and he climbed out, and then he reached back inside to claim his bounty. The poor occupants continued snoring, oblivious. They would have a sad surprise in the morning when they woke. "Let's go," he whispered to Archie, and they set off down the country lane. It was now as black as Archie's mood, and all they had to guide them was the beautiful light of the moon. And they walked along the lane shadowed by the hedgerows, which became their camouflage. Jack wobbled as he walked, as the bag was very heavy, but he had strong arms and shoulders from working the farm. Archie plodded behind him. He was exhausted. They must have walked at least 5 miles, he thought. His paws were hurting, but he knew that he couldn't stop. Suddenly, a bright light was heading towards them, and then closely followed by the wail of a siren. "Hide!" shouted Jack, and they dived into the undergrowth, and the speeding police car swept past them, illuminating the trees and hedges far into the distance. "They're on to us," snapped Jack, and he grabbed Archie's lead and he pulled him along the lane. He marched him like a soldier back to the farmhouse. As soon as they got there, he allowed Archie to return to his digs, while he lay his spoils out on the massive kitchen table. It was like an Aladdin's cave of goods, and he picked up each item and he marvelled at it. The silver spoon, the gold ring, the beautiful oil painting. He was like a magpie admiring what he had stolen, and he was quickly joined by Beryl, who was just as excited as him. Shame wasn't a word in their vocabulary. "It's bloody beautiful," she said as she held the ring up to her large black eyes. And then she tried to put it on. It was a difficult task as her fingers were so fat, like sausages. She pushed and she twisted, and eventually it went onto her sausagey finger. "It looks lovely, darling," said Archie, and she kissed him on the cheek. "Time for a celebration," he said, as he produced two silver goblets, and he filled them with cheap red wine. Beryl drank like a parched fish, and it didn't take long for them to be laughing and singing again without a care in the world.